but we'll be going through the ITSAC IT Staff Augmentation Contract Services request for offer that DIR has posted to the Electronic State Business Daily. This is solicitation number DIR-CPO-TMP 445. I'm calling Berkeley. I am the point of contact for this solicitation. And Tony, I'm still not seeing the slides, so maybe I'm doing something wrong.
Let me get a confirmation that everybody can see my screen. There should be, it should be on a PowerPoint slide saying Information Technology Staff Augmentation Contracts.
Tony, I see it, but I'm getting a bunch of responses that some see it and some cannot.
Okay, let me try this one more time.
I can see it now. Thank you.
Okay, great. I think that helped just restarting that. I think we should be okay.
All right, thank you. So today we'll go through the agenda really quickly. We will have some general introductions and some information about the solicitation. I'm going to give a brief cooperative contracts overview. We will not be discussing accessibility. It is not a part of this solicitation, but any materials that are produced for any clients will need to be accessible. Lynn Hottie will talk us through the historically underutilized business process. I will then take it back and go through the procurement process, including discussing the RFO schedule and how we will conduct these evaluations. And finally, we will have the recap in closing. Throughout this presentation, you are welcome to put questions into your question panel, and we will try to get to those at the end. We do have a hard stop at 3 o'clock today, so we will answer what questions we can, and then we will have to end this webinar at 3 o'clock. All right, next slide, please. So as I said, I'm Colleen Berkeley. I am the Procurement Services Director and the Chief Procurement Office at DIR. Assisting me on this effort, and you will probably end up communicating with them at some point today and throughout the life of this procurement, is Chandra Thompson. You heard her speaking earlier. She's a procurement lead in the Chief Procurement Office, and Scott Wilson as well as a procurement lead in the Chief Procurement Office. We also have on this presentation today, Lynn Hottie. She is the agency historically underutilized business or hub coordinator in the Chief Procurement Office. Next slide. So let me go through a quick cooperative contracts overview for those of you who may not be familiar. DIR's cooperative contracts are contracts that are available for statewide and what has turned into nationwide use for DIR contracts. They are typically $0 contracts that the state establishes for the purposes of allowing customers to quickly and efficiently select a vendor to provide the needed services or the goods that they are looking for. The IT staff augmentation contracts do fall under our cooperative contracts umbrella. These cooperative contracts, specifically the IT staff augmentation or ITSAC contracts, will be made available for customers to either solicit a reference, issue a request for reference, and request for resumes. You can tell I've been getting a lot of references in today. A request for resumes so that you can provide your staff as 1 or 2 per request, or customers under this new set of contracts will be able to issue a statement of work. That statement of work would go to any awarded contract holder, and those would be an opportunity for contract holders to provide a solution to specific staffing needs. So it may not be just resumes that you are providing under these new IT staff augmentation contracts. it could actually be a staffing solution for how you will continuously meet agency demand for specialized staffing. These are the types of programs that are under co-op. Next slide, please. So any of these IT staff augmentation contracts may be asked to provide services to support any of the cooperative contract product offerings that we have. So this slide is really just to give you an idea of the types of things that DIR does provide to agencies under our co-op program. We may need your staff people to come in and help provide services for surveillance cameras or for drone operations, projectors. It's anything that really deals with the IT side of the house. Next slide. This contract is specifically for IT staff augmentation services. You can see that we do have a lot of other service contracts here under our Cooperative Contracts Program, including the deliverables-based IT services contracts or DBITS contracts, which seem similar in nature to the Cooperative Contract IT staff augmentation contract services when you consider the fact that we have now expanded this to include a statement of work. The difference really in these two programs is that the ITSAC contracts will be providing statements of work at rate card resource rates and will not necessarily be completing deliverables that were specified by agencies. Anything that does include a specific deliverable, a document or a system that needs to be built and that will be paid based on the delivery of that object would fall under our deliverables-based IT services. So ITSAC services statements of work are still primarily solutions that are specific to IT staffing needs. They are not about coming in and creating an application or a specific work product. They are here to help agencies augment their staff, but they may be done in such a way that it's a cohesive team that is needed with a specific project manager of some sort who's going to help that. Or it may just be that an agency, rather than issuing multiple ITSAC requests throughout the year, wants to identify a firm that they feel comfortable with going to for any time they need a business analyst, as an example. So they are different contracts, although they have this similar statement of work quality to them. Next slide, please. So let me talk to you a little bit about the specific information for this RFO. Next. So I, Colleen Berkeley, am the specific point of contact for all inquiries regarding this RFO. So if you have questions about the solicitation, then you should be contacting me directly. My email address is here. It is also in RFO section 3.1. This is one of those rules that we put in procurement that could lead to a disqualification if you fail to abide by the single point of contact preclusions that we have in this RFO. One of the reasons that we are doing this is so that I can make sure that I am accurately tracking all questions that are received. And I know this has been a change for some of you current contract holders who are used to submitting questions via bid stamp. All questions will be coming in through me. Likewise, the resumes. And I am not always the fastest, but I am acknowledging receipt of all questions and all resumes. What I am not doing is notifying vendors that I have received their references. Sorry, and I keep getting those two words confused. But I receive the references from the reference provider, And I reply to that email letting them know that I have received those references. I am not going to be notifying the individual vendors who are submitting the references that their references have been received. But if there is a point in time once the bids are open and there are references that are missing, you may be notified at that point in time during the clarification process. Next slide, please. When you are asking questions, it really is very helpful to us if you provide the RFO or other document page number and section number. That way that we can easily track down where you're asking and we can make those corrections as necessary. I can see that you guys are actively submitting questions right now, so I'm going to try to go quickly through these slides so that we can get to answering those questions. I want to remind you that any verbal answer I give you today is not official until it appears in writing in an addendum posted to the Electronic State Business Daily. It is your responsibility to check the Electronic State Business Daily and find those addendums. We will not necessarily be notifying you every time an addendum is posted. We did so today to make sure that everybody had access to the slides in case there was any technical difficulties, but we do want to make sure that you all have the information that you will be held to if you receive a contract. As part of that, one of the things that we are requiring you to do is to sign every addendum and submit that via bid stamp with your final proposal. I want to make sure that you have seen all of the questions and answers that we have posted, and I want to make sure that you are well aware of all of the changes and requirements that may occur. And I'm glancing at the questions right now. So reference deadline. If you have checked your addendum today, you will see that there has been an addendum issued, and we have changed the document for the references from the May 7th date to a May 28th date. So references need to be received on the same day that the proposals are due. We have provided an updated reference form with this new date on it. You do not have to go back out to references and give them this new form if you have already supplied them with the original May 7th date form. Either form will be acceptable. The only difference is the date change. And there's an error on this slide because we do not want questions to come in through the bid stamp vendor information system portal or the VIS. We expect all of those questions to be coming in via email to me, Colleen Berkeley, so that we can track them and I can respond to them, and you'll know that your questions have been received and have been addressed. Next slide, please. But your entire response does need to come in through the bid stamp vendor information system. If you have not requested access to bid stamps yet, I urge you to go to the DIR website, watch the video regarding use of bid stamp, and make sure that you do get your account created well in advance of the bid due date, which is May 28th at 2:00 p.m. You have to do this before you can start submitting response documents. If you have any questions or encounter any technical difficulties, let me know and I will get you to the right person to assist you with using the bid stamp VIS. We will get you to a technical person who will help you with things like passwords and can answer basic questions, but we will not be providing a specific tutorial to walk you through. That is what the video on the website is for. I think that covers that one. Next slide, please, Tony. So here's a screenshot of what you will see once you've logged into the VIS. You will have the ability to see any open DIR solicitation. So this is a very good tool for you all. It will give you the link in the bid stamp to the ESBD, or the Electronic State Business Daily, so you can access the materials. The training guide and the presentation is posted on the Information for Vendors website. If you have a hard time finding that, let me know by an email question, and I will be happy to respond to you, typically within 24 hours. Next question. All right, so let's talk about what we are looking for. The IT Staff Augmentation Services contract is really our way to help agencies find staff augmentation services for technical resources to come in and assist with a variety of business problems that they are trying to solve. It may be augmenting their current staff, it may be augmenting a contractor's staff, but your contract would be with the agency in order to complete a strategic initiative that the agency has undertaken. Agencies are not the only one who can use these ITSAC contracts. We do have a lot of eligible customers. Sales are throughout the state of Texas. We do expect you all to respond to solicitations for agencies that may not be located within the Austin city limits. We expect ITSAC resources to be able to service any agency or customer throughout the state of Texas. That is one of the reasons that we want to see what your marketing plan looks like, so that we make sure that we do have a thorough coverage to make sure our customers can get the services that they need. Next slide, please. So customers will reach out to contract holders in a variety of ways under this contract. We currently have an ITSAC portal that customers may use to reach out to you. Customers may also elect to reach out directly to you all via the contact information, which is contained in the contract and posted to the DIR website. It's very important that you keep your contact information up to date so that customers can reach out to you directly if they elect not to use the ITSAC portal. It is a voluntary usage by our customers. So it's important that that person be watching their emails for opportunities. Contact information is always up to date, and that you all are mindful of the fact that if you are being contacted directly by a customer, that is still considered an open solicitation, and we do expect you under this contract to respond if you have staff suitable for that. Customers may be sending out statements of work, which is a solicitation document that could go to one or more respondents or contract holders looking for a response to their need. You'll need to read the specific response instructions within that document to determine what you would have to do to respond. They may also issue a request for resumes, which is what you typically have been responding to if you're a current contract holder. The agencies will tell you the staff qualifications, the years of experience that they are looking for, and the number of resumes per company that they are looking to receive. So if they are telling you they only want one resume from your entity, please only provide the one that they are asking for. This is something that DIR, as the chief contract holder, does take into account in your vendor performance that we report to the comptroller's office. We do make sure that you are appropriately answering customer requests and you're not exceeding what they ask for. Customers do reach back to us to let us know if you have followed those response instructions and if you have provided the appropriate number of resumes. If the customers use the portal will prevent you from providing more resumes than requested. but if they are sending it via email request, you should treat it as if it's going through the portal. And let's see, I have a question, the differences between the two types of solicitations. Yeah, so there's a question about the difference between the two types of solicitations, the statement of work and request for resumes, and the previous types, the best value and open market. So we got rid of the distinction between best value and open market because it really does not make a difference whether or not the agency is soliciting one or more of the contract holders or the whole list, which was the only difference between the best value and competitive solicitation. Have they chosen a subset, or are they sending it to the entire ITSAC vendor list? We want you all to assume that they're always soliciting multiple responses. These are competitive contracts. We expect you all to do your best to meet the agency's needs. And we don't consider the statement of work to be a best value substitute or the request for resumes to be the competitive solicitation. They're completely different categories. The request for resume is looking for 1 or 2 or up to 5, however many the agency looks for resources based on the resumes that they receive. A statement of work is looking for a solution to a staffing need of some variety. As agencies begin to use our innovative procurement lab more and more, we're likely to see more and more statements of work coming out. That will be a contract awarded to a vendor for whatever that purpose is, but would not necessarily be based solely on the resumes that that vendor has provided. It's a more intense response. I'm sure I'll get more questions about that later. Next slide, please. Qualifications. So vendors have to be able to conduct business in Texas. That does not mean that you have to be incorporated in Texas or have your primary headquarters be located in Texas. You have to be able to sell your products or services within Texas. So you can contact the Texas Comptroller if you have questions. Federal requirements. You cannot be on any of the vendors lists that debar you from being able to provide services. We do check, and you can check yourself. I've provided the link for you, the Comptroller's website of the divestment lists that we check, and you cannot be on the federal list, the System for Award Management or the SAM list, saying that you are not able to provide services. We do have a Texas debarred vendors list that we check. If you are on that list, you will not be able to receive an award under this contract. And if you have poor performance as reported in the vendor performance tracking system with the comptroller, you may not be considered for an award as well. Next slide, please. And this is Hub. I'm going to turn this over to Lynn, and I'm going to start going through these questions and flagging them while she is speaking. Take it away,
Okay.
Lynn.
Thank you, Colleen. Next slide. We're going to talk about the hub subcontracting plan and the requirements. So this procurement does have a hub subcontracting plan attached to it. And all respondents who will be proposing will need to complete a hub subcontracting plan. Even if you're a hub certified company, you will complete this plan. Failure to do so will result in your submission or your response being rejected. So don't forget to complete the entire form and good faith effort method depending upon how you're going to subcontract. Next slide. So One of the good faith effort methods is in completing method A. The hub goal for this procurement is 26%. This falls under other services. So if you're going to subcontract out any of the work and you're going to utilize hub subcontractors at a level of 26% or more, you will complete method A, which means you're going to complete sections 1, 2, 4, and then you will complete method A, attachment A. And in there, you will identify the subcontractors that you intend to utilize. You will provide their VID. And when we say VID, that's a vendor identification number. It also is known as the employer identification number, which is issued to a company from the IRS. So if you're unsure of what that number is, you don't know where to find it, you don't know how to validate that, contact our office. We will help you with that. But you will also identify the estimated dollar amounts and percentages for each vendor you intend to utilize. So in section 2, if you've identified you're going to subcontract out 26% to hubs, and in method A, you've got 2 hub subcontractors, their aggregate total should not exceed 26%. That's what you've identified in section 2. So keep that in mind. 2 plus 2 is always 4. The math has to add. If you'll go to the next slide, Tony. So if you're going to subcontract and you're not going to be meeting the hub goal of 26%, then that means you will be completing sections 1, 2, 4, and method B, attachment B. And in completing method B, attachment B, your good faith effort will include you soliciting a minimum of 3 hub certified vendors and 2 minority trade organizations. And you have to allow them no less than 7 working days to respond to that solicitation. So make sure you give yourself and vendors plenty of time prior to that bid date, due date, and giving them time to respond, because failure to allow them enough time to respond will also result in your response being rejected. You can also provide your supporting documentation for reaching out to those vendors. If you've sent out emails or however you have solicited those vendors, you can put copies of those in your response. And on the next slide, if you have determined that you are not going to be subcontracting, you're going to self-perform this contract, then you're going to be completing sections 1, 2, 3, and 4. And in section 3, you're going to provide a justification on how your company can self-fulfill this contract utilizing your own employees, resources, and/or equipment. Don't make any promises that should you be awarded the contract, you will want to work with subcontractors, or that you're going to be looking for subcontractors. Section 3 is only designated for you to tell us how you're going to self-perform. And also don't refer to any of your bid response sections, because we don't see those. So that section 3 is simply for you to tell us how you're going to self-perform. Don't forget to sign everything in section 4. And if you'll go to the next slide, Tony. If you have any questions when working on this or completing this, you can reach out to me in my office, and we will provide you a complimentary review of your hub subcontracting plan, which means we'll tell you you have completed it correctly or you need to make corrections. Note on this slide, we ask for at least 10 working days, because should you be completing method B, that gives you enough time to go back and fix anything should you need to make any corrections. So, you know, if you send it to me 3 days before the bid's due, we'll look at it, but you may not have enough time to make those corrections. But you can reach out to our office and ask hub subcontracting plan related questions. I'm going to turn it back over to Colleen.
Ooh, we got a lot of questions. All right, let's go to the next slide. So procurement process. I talked about this a little bit about the single point of contact. I want to make it clear here. If you are contacting DIR because you have a contract to provide services to DIR for ITSAC, or if you're contacting them about your current contract, the giant ITSAC contract, that is fine. You cannot contact anyone at DIR to talk about this proposal, this solicitation, other than myself or Lynn. Now, at certain times, I may make exceptions to this so that, like, Chandra can answer questions, or Scott, who is working on the solicitation with us. But other than that, I am the sole point of contact for questions regarding the RFO. Lynn is the point of contact regarding questions for hub compliance, and Lynn's team may be able to help you. But do not contact anyone at DIR other than those people. Failure to observe this requirement could lead to a disqualification. I know a lot of you companies may have relationships with the people that work at DIR. That is fine as long as you are not discussing this RFO while it is an open solicitation. All right, next one. The schedule. So this is a copy from the RFO itself. We've posted on April 16th. It's now April 30th. We're at the pre-proposal conference. The next big round of dates that you should be concerned with is the question and answer period. We've actually been answering questions throughout this RFO. So you will see that I think we answered approximately 20 questions during the first addendum that was posted. I have received probably another 100 or so over the past week. Those will be answered and posted to the Electronic State Business Daily as an addendum. So please, through April 15th through May 8th, please watch those postings. Check the ESBD Daily for updates. Make sure that you are not missing any important updates. And it ends on May 8th because that is the last day to submit questions. I want to make sure that we have adequate time to answer all of the questions and that you will be able to incorporate those answers into your solicitation response. The deadline for submitting your responses, including your references, is May 28th at 2:00 p.m. We will immediately start our evaluation process once the bid closes at 2:00 on May 28th. And we hope to be done no later than the end of June. And then we will go straight into negotiation and contract execution. I don't think it is going to take us 6 months to award all of the contracts. The fewer exceptions you take, the faster the negotiations will go. That's another little tip for you if you are in the competitive range and you want to get a contract fast, don't take exceptions. Let me go to the next slide. I can't remember what comes next. So this is what we are going to be looking for in your responses, and I will talk to you about how we will evaluate it and what the competitive range is in a little bit. So we are going to make sure that you have provided us with Exhibit A, which is your respondent information, and if you have applicable canceled contracts, Attachment 1 needs to be included in that. Failure to disclose those canceled contracts, if we find out about them through the course of our research, may lead to a disqualification. So be mindful of that. We're going to be looking at Exhibit B, your respondent history and experience. We also will augment that with a check of the Comptroller's vendor performance tracking system to see how your customers have rated your quality of service on their contract. We are also looking at your contract marketing and support plan. We want to see how you intend to market your services and make sure that you are able to achieve sales while you have a contract with DIR. And finally, your hub subcontracting plan. It has to be completed. It has to be completed accurately. This is state law. We cannot waive any requirements around what the HSP looks like when we get it in. We also are going to be checking to make sure that you have signed all of your addenda forms. If any of you have been watching, we have an open solicitation for software and related services. We have issued 8 addenda so far. We may issue just as much, if not more, on this solicitation. So please be mindful. You will be held to the requirements or changes that are made via the addenda, whether or not you have signed them, but we will be looking to make sure that you have signed those addenda. And then briefly on references. When we get references back, it has to be from the customer, their email address that received the services from your company. If I receive a reference form from a vendor for themselves, that will not be considered. And I did go through the questions, so I know there were a couple of more questions about these references. So I'm going to try to answer some of them before we get to the question and answer period. So if I receive more than 3 references, we are only going to look at the first 3 that we receive. I don't want you as the respondent to limit the number of reference forms that you send out, however, because you can't guarantee that the 3 you send it to will provide the references. So cast a wide net. I will look at the first 3 that I get. If the reference is from the same agency, but it's from a different individual who received services from a different staff person, that will count as 2 separate references. So it is not, the number is not dependent on the agency, it's the engagement that your company had with them. So you could end up having all 3 references with the same state agency, and all 3 of those would count as your 3 references as long as it was different engagement. And I think that might be the majority of the reference questions. They are due May 28th, not May 7th. We did issue an addendum with an updated reference form that has the correct May 28th due date. You do not have to resend the form to your references if you've already sent out the forms with the May 7th due date. Either form will be accepted. The only thing that changed was the date at the top. So that is up to you. You are not required to download the new form if you've already sent your reference requests out to all of the references that you intend to. That is fine. We just want to make sure that you know you have adequate time to get the references into us that you need to be compliant with the response instructions. All right, next question. I'm sorry, next slide. Get this out of the way. Okay, so how we will evaluate you. We are going to look at your company's financial viability. That is why we ask for DUNS numbers, or we ask for the financial information that we are asking for. We want to make sure that your company is going to be in service, it's not going to go bankrupt or not be disappear over the life of the engagement, because we want our customers to have the certainty of the services that they have procured. We look at the completion and signing of the HSP. That's pass-fail criteria, just as the financial information is. And then, like I said, we look at the vendor performance tracking system. If you have scored less than a C in the VPTS, or the vendor performance tracking system, that may lead to a disqualification. We will read all of the information that is in there about your company to make that determination, and you will be informed. And if you have canceled purchase orders in the previous 12 months, specifically for non-performance, then that is something that will also be considered as we are scoring and doing the initial evaluation of your response. All right, next slide, please. So here's basically what I went through before. These are more things that will cause your response to be disqualified. If you don't get it to me on or before the due date and time, if you don't sign your attachment A so that I know that it is a valid response from your company, if you don't provide the financial information that's requested, and you are determined to be a risk to the agency because of your financial situation, if you do not fully disclose your canceled contract, or if you fail to sign or complete the new hub subcontracting plan. Those are all reasons why you may be disqualified as part of this process. Next slide, please. Oh, so before I go to that, I want to also talk about the other things that we look at when we are evaluating. In RFO section 4.1, I believe, we have the evaluation criteria. We are really primarily looking for your marketing plan and the experience that your company has providing these services. That is how you will be evaluated. Once all responses have been received, the evaluation process will start. So even if you turned your response into me today, I will not be able to open that response until May 28th at 2:00 p.m. so that I can start the evaluation process. We will complete all of the evaluations. Every response must be scored before we determine what the competitive range is. Once we have determined that competitive range, we will then start negotiating with vendors for contracts based on where they scored in that process. So I know contracts are ending for some of you. We are prepared to do extensions as needed, but we will not move someone up the list that scored lesser than someone else because of a contract due to expire or customer demand. We are only looking at doing the competitive range wherever that logical break is based on the evaluation scores as given by the team of evaluators that work on this process. Was there anything else on evaluation I wanted to talk about? Yeah, just make sure that you read and understand the weighted evaluation criteria section of the RFO. All right, exceptions. So exceptions are always considered. We are going to look at the nature and type of exceptions. And if you took exceptions to areas that are marked in red on the sample contract, I'm sorry, not the sample contract, the terms and conditions document, you may not be considered for an award. We will not negotiate any exceptions to those terms that are marked as do not submit an exception. So be mindful of that. And then based on the number of exceptions or the type of exceptions you take to the other areas that may affect your standing in the award negotiation list. It won't necessarily push you below the competitive range, but it may affect how soon we get to you in terms of awarding the contract. All right, next slide, please. So after this solicitation or this conference, we will be issuing another addendum. We're going to provide you with all of the webinar material, including these slides. We're going to give you the list of attendees. So I can see there's 339 attendees currently on the phone. You'll have access to that. And an updated question and answer document. So rather than belabor that anymore, let's go to the next slide, because I think that's where we're going to start answering these questions. contact information that you all may need right here. Again, the due dates and times, and